stuffing a completely unjammable automatic cannon, a twin-tube wire-guided anti-tank missile launcher, and 6 fully armed combat infantrymen into a highly explosive 27-ton aluminum box was an absolutely insane engineering gamble executed by the Pentagon during the Cold War. The initial developmental phase was plagued with catastrophic metallurgical failures and intense political scrutiny, leading many military analysts to label the vehicle a complete death trap. However, the brutal realities of combat completely rewrote the narrative. During the intense armored engagements of Operation Desert Storm in 1991, across the burning sands of Iraq, this controversial aluminum battlefield taxi systematically crushed and destroyed more heavily armored Iraqi T-72 main battle tanks than the legendary 60-ton M1 Abrams war machine. We are physically stripping away the raw mechanical layers of the M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, bypassing the exterior armor to understand exactly why this Frankenstein hybrid machine evolved into the deadliest apex predator on the modern ground battlefield. The primary mechanical heart of this beast completely abandons traditional gas-operated or recoil-operated firearm designs that are highly susceptible to catastrophic jamming in dirty, sand-filled combat environments. The main armament dominating the turret is the M242 Bushmaster 25mm chain gun. This specific weapon system is not powered by the explosive gases of the ammunition it fires. It is driven entirely by an external 1-horsepower direct current electric motor. This motor physically pulls a massive, continuous dual-roller chain system functioning identically to heavy-duty industrial motorcycle chains, looping around a track to drive the bolt assembly back and forth. This external electrical power source enforces ruthless, unstoppable mechanical dynamics upon the internal firing cycle. In a standard gas-operated weapon, a misfired cartridge completely halts the machine because the system relies exclusively on the expanding explosive gases from the detonated powder to cycle the bolt and extract the casing. The Bushmaster chain gun simply does not care about dud ammunition or misfires. If a primer completely fails to detonate upon being struck by the firing pin, the electric motor and the heavy steel chain system do not stop, hesitate, or wait for internal gas pressure to build. The rotating chain mechanism uses raw, brute mechanical torque to violently extract the unexploded heavy brass casing, forcibly eject it from the receiver, and violently ram the next live 25mm round directly into the hardened steel firing chamber without skipping a single fraction of a second, maintaining a relentless cyclic rate of exactly 200 rounds per minute. Feeding this unstoppable mechanical grinder requires an incredibly complex and ingenious dual-feed ammunition mechanism directly integrated into the weapon receiver housing. By utilizing a specialized heavy-duty electromagnetic solenoid selector switch physically mounted inside the cramped turret, the Bradley gunner can instantaneously transition the weapon feed between 2 completely separate ammunition belts with a single aggressive button press. This instantaneous mechanical bypass allows a rapid, sub-second tactical transition between high-explosive incendiary tracer rounds, designed specifically to violently shred soft targets and infantry formations, and specialized armor-piercing, fin-stabilized discarding sabot rounds, engineered exclusively to kill heavily armored vehicles. The APFSDS-T projectile is a masterpiece of kinetic destruction. It is not a standard explosive shell relying on a chemical warhead or a shaped charge to inflict damage. Instead, it is a solid, extremely dense depleted uranium penetrator dart, stabilized by aerodynamic aluminum fins and mechanically launched down the fluted barrel at a staggering hypersonic velocity of 1,345 meters per second. The extreme kinetic friction generated upon physical impact with an enemy target produces maximum thermal energy at the exact point of contact. This immense localized heat causes the incredibly dense depleted uranium core to undergo adiabatic shear banding, meaning it physically self-sharpens as it impacts, preventing the tip from mushrooming or blunting. It then spontaneously ignites as it punches violently through the thick, rolled, homogeneous steel armor of opposing infantry fighting vehicles. The heavy uranium dart physically shears through the steel plate, spraying a blinding, superheated storm of radioactive metal fragments and molten spall directly into the enclosed enemy crew compartment. This violent kinetic penetration instantly neutralizes all biological organisms and permanently destroys all internal mechanical functions inside the targeted vehicle. The 25mm Bushmaster turret operates flawlessly as a high-speed mechanical meat grinder, completely dominating the offensive battle space. However, the relatively thin aluminum hull physically protecting the 6 human lives sitting directly underneath that turret demands an equally violent metallurgical and chemical defensive solution to survive the lethal anti-tank weapons of the modern battlefield. To keep the M2 Bradley's weight strictly capped at 27 tons, ensuring its amphibious river crossing capabilities and allowing its 600 horsepower Cummins 5.8 diesel engine to physically keep pace with the turbine-powered M1 Abrams, engineers made a highly controversial metallurgical gamble. They constructed the entire primary hull out of welded 5083 military-grade aluminum alloy. While aluminum significantly reduced the overall gross vehicle weight, it introduced a catastrophic physical vulnerability against infantry anti-tank weapons. When a standard Soviet-era RPG-7 shaped charge warhead strikes standard steel armor, it punches a clean hole. However, when that same 3000 Celsius plasma jet strikes 5083 aluminum, the metallurgical reaction is horrifying. The extreme thermal energy not only melts the aluminum, but actually ignites it, turning the hull itself into combustible fuel and instantly filling the enclosed crew compartment with highly toxic, superheated gas. To aggressively counteract this fatal design flaw, without adding 30 tons of dead steel weight, Pentagon engineers drastically altered the exterior architecture by bolting massive arrays of explosive reactive armor, or ERA, directly onto the aluminum chassis. These ERA tiles are essentially heavy steel boxes tightly packed with highly stable C4 military explosives. This is a violent defensive mechanism utilizing controlled counter-detonations. When the hyper-velocity copper plasma jet of an incoming shaped charge physically pierces the outer steel plate of an ERA tile, it instantly detonates the C4 explosive layer hidden inside. This massive outward explosion violently propels the heavy steel faceplate directly into the path of the incoming plasma jet, physically shattering and decapitating the thermal spear before it can even touch the fragile aluminum hull underneath. But even with ERA neutralizing the plasma threat, the sheer kinetic shockwave of heavy artillery shells impacting the exterior hull creates a deadly secondary phenomenon known as spalling. The extreme concussive force slamming into the outside of the aluminum armor causes the interior wall of the hull to violently shatter, sending thousands of razor-sharp aluminum fragments blasting through the troop compartment at supersonic speeds like a massive shotgun blast. To physically catch this lethal storm of metallic shrapnel, the entire interior crew space of the M2 Bradley is heavily lined with a specialized ballistic Kevlar spall liner. This woven aramid fabric acts as a highly resilient catcher's mitt, absorbing the kinetic energy of the high-speed aluminum fragments. and preventing them from ripping through the soft tissue of the 6 infantrymen strapped into the rear passenger seats. While the 25mm Bushmaster shreds light targets, neutralizing enemy main battle tanks requires an entirely different mechanical apparatus bolted to the left side of the turret. The twin-tube BGM-71 TOW anti-tank missile launcher. This armored mechanical arm physically folds down flush against the turret during transit to prevent snagging on urban debris and violently snaps upward into a firing position using heavy hydraulic actuators when a target is acquired. The TOW missile operates on a bizarrely analog, almost science fiction premise. It does not rely on modern fire-and-forget laser targeting or GPS guidance. TOW literally stands for tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided. Upon launching from the tube, the missile violently unspools 2 incredibly thin, physical copper wires directly from its tail section, trailing them across the battlefield for up to 3,000 meters. The gunner inside the Bradley must keep his magnified optical crosshairs perfectly centered on the moving enemy tank. The targeting computer constantly calculates the deviation between the gunner's crosshairs and the infrared flare burning on the tail of the flying missile, instantly transmitting electrical steering corrections directly down those fragile copper wires to the missile's flight control fins. It is a fatal 3,000-meter physical leash connecting the shooter directly to the explosive payload. If the gunner flinches, the missile misses. If the copper wire snaps on a tree branch, the missile crashes. But if the connection holds, a massive 152mm high-explosive anti-tank warhead slams directly into the enemy armor, detonating with enough kinetic force to completely decapitate a 40-ton T-72 tank, blowing its turret dozens of feet into the air. The M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle ultimately proved that modern armored warfare is not simply about building an impenetrable, passive steel wall. It is about aggressively dominating the battle space through a flawless mechanical synergy of high-speed automatic firepower, explosive reactive defense systems, and wire-guided precision strikes.
It is about aggressively dominating
the 6 combat infantrymen stepping off the rear hydraulic ramp of a Bradley are not merely being transported to the front line. They are being actively escorted by a heavily armored mobile slaughterhouse.
Do not forget to subscribe
to the channel and leave a comment below telling us exactly which mechanical death machine you want us to dissect and analyze next.
Dominating the battle space through a flawless mechanical synergy of high-speed automatic firepower,